Welcome to another public live stream session. And man, do we have a lot to talk about. And today we're going to talk about how to save half of your income and why it's possible for everyone to save over 50% of their income to achieve financial independence and retire early. So let me show you this. Click that. So throughout this live stream, I'm going to talk about the checklist that you need to achieve financial independence and retire early. I'm also going to show you the financial independence calculator that I created, which you can download for absolutely free by visiting fireswitch.com/resources. While we're so focused on investing, I'm going to share the 5 savings accounts I have so that I don't touch my investments. And lastly, I'm going to show you my savings rate calculator and show you how to balance your net worth. You don't want to have too much in your 401k, too much in the equity of your house, or too much cash, right? So I'm going to talk about how to balance all of that while you're saving 50% of your income. And this is how you start investing to achieve financial independence and retire early. Saving 50% of your income is not an easy step to achieve. If you take a look at my FIRE checklist that I created a few years ago, just like everyone else, I started with step 1, which is to calculate your financial independence numbers so that you know how much you need to invest each month, each year, and how much you'll collect from your pension so that you can retire early. I also spent about 2 years between steps 2 and 4 to pay off over $110,000 in consumer debt and achieve financial solvency. Before step 4 of my FIRE checklist, I saved between $1,500 and $2,000 in my rainy day fund for step 2, which is to have enough cash to cover any deductibles like car insurance, homeowners insurance, and medical insurance. I also contributed to my 401k, but only up to the employer match. So I contributed 6% of my gross income to my 401k, and my employer contributed 3% of my gross income to my 401k. You should never, ever leave free money on the table. After I did all that, then I started my debt-free journey to pay off over $110,000 in consumer debt between my car loans, credit cards, a 401k loan, and a personal loan. I'm going to talk more in depth about that in the future live stream, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't done that already. But I can't achieve solvency without accomplishing step 5. When I paid off my debt in 2016, I spent another 5 to 6 months building up my cash reserves. And the first priority was to max out my emergency fund to have financial solvency in my household. I didn't want to go back into debt again. If I ever became unemployed for a variety of reasons, if you think your job is safe, trust me, it never is. And back in 2017, I wasn't married. So I saved about 6 months of my expenses in a high yield savings account. And now that I'm married, I am more comfortable with saving between 3 and 4 months of expenses because if I ever lose my job, we'll still be able to live off of my wife's income. And everyone's situation is different. So you need to do what's right for you and your household to achieve financial solvency. Once you've completed step 5, the next step is to start working on your long-term financial stability. Investing in your Roth IRA, HSA, and 401k is what you'll need to do to make sure that you don't become broke when you're 60 years old. Whether you're on the financial independence journey or not, that's what you need to prioritize on. I know a lot of you in my comment section say that you want to have fun while you're still alive. You can absolutely have fun while you're investing in long-term retirement accounts. And you can't tell me that you know what's exactly going to happen to you when you're in your 60s. No one can predict the future, but you can insure yourself to make sure you have enough money to live on your investments and pensions. My priority is to max out my HSA, Roth IRA, and then the 401k in that order. I encourage you to check out my YouTube playlist labeled HSA, Roth IRA, and 401k on my main YouTube page. And once you've accomplished step 6 and 7, then you're going to start working on your early retirement if that's what you want. And I get that some people just want to keep working until they're 60, and that's completely okay. And I personally want to be done working at age 45, but even if you don't want to retire early, you can always start building generational wealth now. And that could be the 529 college savings plan, UPMA or UGMA, or taxable investment accounts. And I'm going to show you the early retirement calculator in the next segment of this live stream. But it's important that you prioritize your long term investments like the 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA before you even start investing in your early retirement. Our number one priority is to get the employer match with the 401k. And once we get the employer match, then I move on to the HSA and contribute up to the maximum. The next one is our Roth IRA for each for me and my wife. After we max out our Roth IRA and HSA, then we go back to our 401k to maximize the rest of the contribution. Then we move on to the taxable investment accounts for our early retirement. And this is my investment timeline. Now, I'm going to be 37 years old this year. So I'm over 6 years into my FIRE journey. This is the most important bracket of my timeline because I want to make sure I have the assets and income for the rest of my life and not have to rely on Social Security because we all know that it can go away at any time. And I was 31 years old when I started maxing out my Roth IRA and Roth 401k because it's going to have long-term growth, right? And I actually didn't get to start investing in my HSA until 2022 because I wasn't eligible for the high deductible health plan until then. Keep in mind that I'm not touching any of these investments until at least I'm 59 and a half. Even when I retire early at age 45, the investments in my Roth IRA, HSA, and 401k will continue to grow with compounding interest. This is why I'm maximizing my retirement contribution every single year until I retire early. So the year 2041 is when I'm eligible to withdraw from my 401k, TSP, and Roth IRA. And I already did the math on these with my compound interest calculator. And again, you can download all of my spreadsheets for absolutely free by visiting firesitchat.com/resources. I should have about $1.9 million dollars between the 401k and TSP. My wife and I are going to have roughly $3.5 million dollars in our Roth IRAs. And I'm also going to have my military pension starting at age 58 for serving in the reserve with some active duty time. And if you retire on active duty, then obviously you'll start collecting a pension as soon as you retire. But that's not the case for me because I'm going to be retiring as a reservist. My wife's going to be collecting her state pension at the age of 55 with the possibility to buy back some time if Social Security is still going to be around. And I'd be happy to start collecting early at age 62. I'm also going to start collecting my federal employee pension at age 62. And I am projecting that my wife and I can collectively receive over $100,000 a year in total retirement pensions. But again, that's not until I'm at least 62 years old to have those projections, right? And lastly, we should have enough in our HSA or health savings account to pay for our medical expenses throughout our retirement. And we can actually use the HSA to pay for any expenses starting at the age of 65. And you can watch my HSA investment strategy linked in the description below. And when I retire early, I should have enough passive income streams from my taxable investment accounts with dividend stocks, growth stocks to live on the earnings and interest, and enough cash reserves and rental income to pay for any additional expenses. Starting at age 50, I'll be eligible to withdraw from the Roth IRA conversions that I make from traditional 401k with the 5-year rule. I also did an extensive video on that, so be sure to check it out in the description below. So from now until I reach FIRE at 45, I'm always going to prioritize my retirement accounts because if I fail to reach my FIRE number by the time I'm 45 years old, I can still count on my 401k, HSA, and Roth IRA to continue to grow until I'm 60 years old. Who knows? Maybe I want to continue to build my business and something else might come along the line where I want to be more ambitious and build a financial empire. Who knows, right? And I can't tell you what's going to happen 5, 10, and 20 years from now. But, going back to this, what I can tell you is that I have 2 taxable brokerage accounts that I invest in index funds, ETFs, and individual stocks. One of them is in individual dividend investments, and the other one is in growth investments for my early retirement. I also diversify my assets with real estate and business, and this is my business, right? But those are completely separate entities. And as you can see on top, I'm always going to invest in my long term investments while I work on my early retirement investments. And for my early retirement investments, the first and foremost is figuring out how much I need from age 45 until age 60. If you're retiring at age 50, then you need to figure out your income streams for those years. And I've decided that my expenses will be at least $110,000 a year because I'm looking to travel and live in several places overseas and stateside. But not everyone needs that much. I probably don't even need that much to retire early, to be honest with you. Having $3.7 million dollars for me would be plenty of money to retire early. That's my FIRE number adjusted for inflation. So if your FIRE number is $1 million right now, you need to keep in mind that $1 million today won't be the same 10 years from now because you will lose some purchasing powers over time. Except for my mortgage payments, though, because my debt becomes cheaper over time with inflation while the equity in my home increases, which is why it's the very last step of my financial independence checklist. And it's also going to depend on the location that you're going to be in. So your FIRE number might be higher if you're living in the city, right? Retiring in New York City or California is going to be a lot different than retiring in Spokane, Washington, or in Idaho or Arizona, right? And I would also argue. Let me go back to the mortgage for a second here. I would argue that keeping a mortgage loan is actually not a bad thing as long as it doesn't exceed 25% of your income. Investing the difference in my 20s, 30s, and 40s mathematically makes sense with a long-term investment plan. And I think a lot of people in 2020 and 2021 just overpay for their homes and now they're paying too much in mortgage payments. However, keeping your student loans, personal loans, 401k loans, or credit card debt doesn't apply in this situation because you're essentially paying back debt that has no appreciating value like owning a home. And I would also argue that if you're in your 50s, you want to become more risk averse with holding on to your mortgage debt. And when I'm in my 50s, I'm looking to have my mortgage paid off to reduce my liabilities so that if my physical or mental health deteriorates for whatever reason, then I won't need to worry about the mortgage payments, right? Let me show you the other early retirement strategy here, which is the 5-year conversion ladder with the Roth IRA. And I'm going to have some money in my traditional 401k from the employer match and the contributions that I made many years ago. I'm making the Roth conversions during my retirement or early retirement because my taxable income is going to be a lot lower than my income now. So age 45 is the best time for me to make these conversions when I retire early with a 12% marginal tax rates versus 24% right now. And because of the 5-year rule, every year I make a Roth IRA conversion, I have to wait 5 years to make a tax-free withdrawal, right? So when I start at the age of 45, I can start making the withdrawal at age 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, and so on. It just depends on how many years you're going to make the Roth IRA conversion. Let me just give you the breakdown here. So this is my early retirement strategy. I'm looking to retire early at the age of 45. So my taxes will be a lot lower than what I pay now, right? I'm going to have roughly $500,000 in my traditional 401k when I'm 45 years old. I'm going to convert $50,000 a year for the next 10 years, but not counting my interest and earnings. For the first 5 years of my early retirement, between the ages of 45 and 49, I'm going to convert $50,000 a year, but I can't make any withdrawals yet because I have to wait 5 years to take the $50,000 out every year, tax-free and penalty-free. That makes sense, right? I also don't want to convert the entire $500,000 or it's going to be, the taxes are going to be insane. That's why I'm doing spreading them apart by 10 years. So every year, $50,000 for 10 years, that taxes will be a lot lower by doing it that way. In the second 5 years of my early retirement, between the ages of 50 and 54, I'm going to continue to convert $50,000 a year. And I'm also going to be able to take out $50,000 tax-free and penalty-free every year. So I'm going to have $50,000 in tax-free income starting at the age of 50 while I'm still converting that $50,000 every year from my traditional 401k. But keep in mind that I still have to pay my income tax, like I said earlier, on the $50,000 conversion every year. And I'm hoping to keep that around 12% in the marginal tax rate. And that makes sense so far, right? And hopefully it should be 22% at the most. And starting at the age of 55, because I don't have anything left in my traditional 401k, I'm just going to be making the $50,000 tax free and penalty free withdrawal until I'm 59 years old. I'm not making any conversions anymore, but that's okay because at age 59 and a half, I'm going to be eligible to withdraw from my Roth 401k, TSP, or Roth IRA tax free and penalty free. This is why you need to have your investment timeline figured out before you even start investing in financial independence. And I'm going to show you the financial independence calculator in the next segment of this live stream. So be sure to stay tuned. And this is why maximizing your 401k contributions is very important in the early stage of your life. It's not possible for me to make these conversions and take tax-free withdrawals in my 50s if I didn't contribute to my 401k, right? That could be your TSP, 403b, 457, whatever that might be. Now, I've been following every step of my own financial independence checklist since I started my debt-free journey in 2014 and my FIRE journey in 2016. You have to first create financial solvency in your household by getting out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle. Then you have to work on creating financial stability to invest in your long-term investments. Once you achieve all of that, then you start working on your early retirement investments. And I encourage you to download my financial independence resources for absolutely free by visiting firesidechat.com/resources. And if you need to schedule a coaching session with me, you can visit firesidechat.com/coaching. And those sessions do fill up fast. Last one that just came out was on June 15th, and that got filled up within like 2 days. So be sure to check back on my calendar website if you don't see any available appointment slots now, because they're only available 30 calendar days into the future. So how much do you truly need to retire early? I have a financial independence calculator, which you can download for absolutely free by visiting firesidechat.com/resources. And I'm going to give you a full tutorial on that calculator in a little bit here. So let me show you this. Let me know if you can see it. All right. So, but first, you need to know how to calculate your financial independence number. On the line 2. The formula for the FIRE number is your annual expenses multiplied by 25. So for example, if your annual expenses today are $40,000 a year, if you multiply that by 25, then your FIRE number is $1 million. Because with a 4% withdrawal rate, you can take out $40,000 a year from your investment account without ever worrying about running out of money, right? And now I'm going to show you this. And this is my financial independence calculator. It is super simple to use, okay? And the first block is where you put the current amount you have invested for either early retirement or just retirement, depending on your age. If you're retiring at age 60, then you should include your 401k, Roth IRA, and any investment accounts that you currently have. If you're retiring early in your 40s or 50s, then you should only put the amount of your early retirement investments and that don't include your 401k or Roth IRA. The second block is where you put the average stock market return. If you think you can perform better than the 7% average, then you can just put 8%, 9%, or 10%. It's up to you. The next block is where you put your current age or the age you're turning this year. So I'm going to be 37 this year, so I'm going to put 37, right? The next block is your desired retirement age. You can put 45, 46, or 60 if you want to. And the next block is going to tell you how many years you have until you achieve FIRE or financial independence and retire early. And the next one is the annual inflation rate. And I know this has been the subject of discussion since 2022. And I put 2% because historically speaking, it's been 2% or 2.5% on average if you don't count 2022 and 2023. You can put whatever you want to like 2.5 or 3%, okay? And the next block is your annual expenses. This is where you need to do the line by line expenses you have now, like your housing, transportation, utilities, and groceries. If your expenses now are $50,000 a year, but your future expenses are going to be $70,000 a year, then I will put $70,000 based on your retirement expenses. You should also include your mortgage payments if you think you're going to keep your mortgage on there. And the next block in green right here is where you put your other income sources, such as your pensions, because your pensions are your passive income streams. You can put your Social Security pension, federal government pension, state pension, or your military pension. And if you retire as an active duty member, let's say you retire at the age of 40, you can start collecting your military pension right away. So you would put that on there to calculate your FIRE number. You can also put your rental income if you want to, but just make sure it's your net income and not the gross income. But keep in mind that you can't collect some of these pensions until you're 60 or 62. So if you're retiring early in your 40s or 50s, you're not going to be able to add those pensions in this block. You can always put other income sources like the business income, rental income, or if you collect any royalties. But if you put $30,000 a year right here, okay, let's say that's your military pension income, your annual expenses will be reduced from $70,000 to $40,000, which means your FIRE number would also be reduced. So with a 4% withdrawal rate, your FIRE number could be reduced from $1.75 million to $1 million because you have a pension income of $30,000 a year. That makes sense so far, right? I'm going to show you this again. So let's say you don't have any pension right now. Okay, your FIRE number will be $1.75 million to live on to pay for $70,000 annual expenses. But if you collect $30,000 and take a look at line 14 here, okay, see how the numbers change to $1 million? That's how it's going to be because you need to live on $70,000, but you're getting that $30,000 in pension. Now you just need to collect $40,000 a year from your FIRE investment. So that would be $1 million invested. Okay. And so your FIRE number today could be, $1 million here. But if you adjust it by the 2% annual inflation rate, your FIRE number, if you look at line 15, 15 years from now, is going to be $1.3 million. And these numbers are really generic because you should be calculating your annual expenses every single year to recalculate your FIRE number. And if you look at line 16 here, this is how much you need to invest every year for the next 15 years with a 7% average annual return to hit that FIRE number at retirement. And line 17 tells you how much you need to invest each month to retire in 15 years with a 7% average annual return. In order to reduce that amount, you can either reduce your expenses or increase your pension income. You might also need to increase your retirement age. Let's say you want to retire at 50 or 55. Okay, let me go to 50 instead. Okay, you see how that now you don't need to save as much as you would for 15 years. Now you have 20 years to invest, but it gives you more breathing room if you're not making that much money right now. And I also keep in mind that I kept the beginning balance at $0. And chances are that you probably have some money invested already, right? So if you put $100,000 here, let's say that's how much money you have invested so far, then your minimum annual investment will be reduced even more. Now you just need to invest at least $2,000 a month to retire. And let me know in the comment section down below if you have any questions about the FIRE calculator. And the one thing you really need to figure out is your annual expenses. Okay. So like you need to take the time to just go line by line, and you probably have an idea how much you spend every year right now. And you need to be able to divide discretionary and non-discretionary expenses. What does your retirement look like to you? Are you looking to spend less or more in retirement? It's going to depend on how much money you're spending now. If you have kids, you might not need to spend as much because they're probably going to be moved out of the house by the time you retire. If you're close to your normal retirement age of 60, then you might not need to invest as much in the taxable brokerage account because you'll be eligible to withdraw from your retirement accounts at the age of 59 and a half. Can I retire with $1 million invested? Absolutely. If my expenses are less than $40,000 a year, then my $1 million investment is totally doable. If you plan to receive a pension, you might not even need $1 million invested because you'll have additional income streams. This FIRE calculator is only based on the total investments you're going to have in the stock market. And your savings rate absolutely matters more than the stock market return. If you want to retire with $2 million, $3 million, you have to increase your savings rate because that's what you can control. You can't really control how the stock market performs, right? Let me know in the comment section down below if you have any questions about the calculator. Now, let's talk about how I allocate my cash every year. And obviously, I don't want to have too much cash or too little cash set aside, right? If I have too much cash, I could potentially lose the purchasing power to inflation, right? If I have too little cash, then I could potentially risk taking money out of my investments and end up paying 15% in capital gains tax. You also don't want to have too much in retirement and not much in cash at all. So what I do is balance my cash savings, retirement savings, and investments for my early retirement. But in my joint checking account with my wife and I always keep at least 1 month of expenses carried over month. So if 1 month of my expenses is $3,000, then I keep $3,000 in my checking account month over month. But keep in mind that I only do this after I have paid off all of my debt. But since I'm debt free, I like to have that cushion in my checking account. And keeping that $3,000 balance would prevent us from getting hit with overdraft fees. And you don't have to do $3,000, but you can do something like $1,000 or $1,500. It's completely up to you. And speaking of an emergency fund, we like to keep at least 6 months of our expenses and a rainy day fund in a high yield savings account. When you're just starting to build your emergency fund now, keep in mind that you should have a rainy day fund before an emergency fund. This account should only be used for something necessary and unexpected. A rainy day fund is when you need the cash right away to replace a blown tire, medical or dental deductibles, or something else that's urgent and unexpected. An emergency fund is used to cover your living expenses while you're looking for a new source of income. You need to take the time to add up all of your essential expenses. What happens if you lose your job tomorrow? What happens if the debt ceiling just collapses next week? How much do you really need to save in order to survive for 3 months or 6 months without any income? The next savings account we have is for our annual expenses. What you probably don't realize is how much you spend on annual subscriptions, car maintenance, DMV registrations, taxes, and other annual or semi-annual expenses that could cost you $300, $500, or $1,000 in one-time expenses. We categorize this savings account as necessary and expected. So keep that in mind that an emergency is for anything that's necessary and unexpected. But an annual expenses fund is for something that's necessary and expected. And the next savings account that we have is our discretionary fund. This is used for anything unnecessary but expected. What's considered unnecessary? That would be anything that is not essential or necessary. Something discretionary would be something like birthday presents, birthday parties, concerts, sporting events, anniversary celebrations, and Christmas presents. Most of these events I mentioned could cost you $200, $300, or even more for a single event. How much do you think you'll spend on a hockey game, right? How much do you spend on your kid's birthday party? And how much do you think you'll spend on your Christmas shopping? These are the things you're going to have to think about when it comes to the discretionary fund. Like my wife and I went to the Golden Knights game. What was it? Last week on game one against Dallas Stars. That cost about $200 to eat and drink at the game. It's pretty expensive to go to the Golden Knights game. But yeah, something like that. And the next savings account is my favorite one, and this is my travel fund. This is obviously for something that's not necessary, but more on the discretionary side. The reason why I separated this from the discretionary fund is because I tend to purchase plane tickets at least 3 to 6 months in advance. And there's more planning that goes into it when it comes to traveling, right? Hotels, rental cars, plane tickets, and all that. My wife and I, well, at least me, I think both of us, we all agree that we want to travel overseas at least once a year and stateside 4 to 5 times a year because we love to travel. We want to make sure that we have enough cash saved in our travel funds so we can purchase plane tickets 3 to 6 months in advance and get them at a discount. And the last savings bucket would be more for something you're going to purchase for just one time. This is also called a major sinking fund. You could be saving for a vehicle, home improvement like upgrading your kitchen, or a down payment on your first home. My rule of thumb is if it's something I'm going to purchase within the next 36 months or 3 years, then I'm going to keep it in cash in a high yield savings account or CDs. If it's something I'm going to purchase in 3 years or more, then I'm going to move that to a separate taxable brokerage account and invest in an index fund or something like that. You need to assess your risk versus reward before you decide to put it in a high yield savings account or a taxable brokerage account. But how do you prioritize your cash allocation? My financial independence checklist that I showed you earlier actually helps you. It can help you navigate your investment priority. After you calculate your FIRE number, you're going to know what your current annual expenses are going to be and what your annual expenses are when you retire, right? The next step is to save your rainy day fund in your emergency fund, but only up to your deductibles. If your car insurance deductible is $500, so your medical insurance deductible is another $500, and your homeowner's insurance deductible is $1,000, then I would recommend saving at least $2,000 in cash in your rainy day fund. And the next step is to contribute to your 401k up to the employer match. If they don't offer you one, then just simply skip the step. And after you pay off your debt, like credit cards, personal loans, student loans, and car loans, then you want to work on maxing out your emergency fund, saving anywhere between 3 and 6 months of your expenses. And once you have your emergency fund fully funded, then you can move on to creating your financial stability by maxing out your long term investments. I am currently on steps 8 and 9, working to achieve financial independence so that I can retire early by age 45. And I'm saving at least 70% of my income and building generational wealth at the same time. And I wouldn't start working on saving for the travel fund or the discretionary fund until you finish at least step 5 of my financial independence checklist. And this is how I prioritize my cash accounts. Okay. I have my emergency fund that is set aside, and I'm not going to touch it unless I need to use it for something necessary and unexpected. A blown tire is necessary and unexpected, but buying a TV is not necessary, right? If I ever use my emergency fund, I make sure to put the money back over time so that it's fully funded again in a month or 2 months. The second priority is my annual expenses fund, which is only used for anything necessary and expected. My annual DMV registration fee in Nevada is actually uh, it's actually a lot higher than other states. So that's considered necessary and expected. And it'll cost me probably like $400 or $300 every year. A birthday party is not necessary, so I won't use that annual expenses fund to throw a birthday party or something like that. The third priority to me, because I love to travel, would be the travel fund. And I make travel a priority every year because it's something I am passionate about. And what's your passion? Let me know in the comment section down below. What are you passionate about? You know, some people, like some of my clients, are passionate about going hunting. So they want to get all the hunting gear every year, and they actually set up a sinking fund or their hunting discretionary fund to put some money away. So they have that money to buy new equipment every year. You know, so if you like computers and if you're a gamer, what kind of you want to upgrade your hardware or software, you know, you have your own discretionary fund. If you're not passionate about travel, you can always do other things just to buy something that you love. This is why I want you to really just focus on not just the long-term retirement. And I know a lot of people are saying that, oh, you need to focus on your retirement and all that. You can do it at the same time. You can do retirement and have fun at the same time. Okay. The only time that I don't think you should have as much fun is if you're in a massive amount of debt. Okay. That would be the time for you to really, really focus on paying down your debt. Okay. And I want to show you this. Okay. You can download it for free by visiting firesuch.com/resources. And let's say I want to travel I want to save for travel this year in 2023. and I get paid biweekly, right? So if I save $100 every 2 weeks, so by the end of the year, I'm gonna have $2,650 or $2,600 by the end of 2023, and I'm getting paid 4% in APY from a high yield savings account. Okay, and let's say I want to purchase a plane ticket to in May. I want to go to New York City. Okay, at the end of May, so I'm gonna purchase my plane ticket in May. And you see how I still have $308 left in my travel fund, right? If I don't travel until September, I'll still have over $1,200 saved by the time I travel to New York in September. And I can also put in another $700 for food and transportation in September. And I'm still going to be in net positive with $600 left in my travel fund. The key is to consistently save $100 every single 2 weeks or every time you get paid. So you don't need to take out any debt when you're ready to travel. And did you know that American people, use the buy now, pay later service to pay for travel? And those interest rates are getting outrageous, ridiculous if you fail to make your payments. The way I do it is I use my credit cards and to make traveling purchases and then pay them off right away with my travel fund. And I never carry a balance on my credit card using this cash saving strategy. And I love to stay at say Marriott, right? So I got a Chase Marriott credit card. If I spend $1,000 on a Marriott hotel in New York, then I use my Chase Marriott credit card to earn points and then use my travel fund that I showed you earlier to pay off the balance. You should never use your credit card with money you don't have. I'm going to show you the savings rate calculator in the next segment of this live stream. And I always plan carefully before making a big purchase. And this is why and how so many Americans get into credit card debt in the first place, because they use their credit cards with the money they don't have. So I get this question a lot in my comment section that $1,000,000 isn't really enough anymore. Should that stop you from investing? Of course not, right? Inflation will always be there. So I'm going to show you the savings rate calculator. I encourage you to just download all of my financial resources for absolutely free by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. I believe in free financial education. So you should be able to download all of my resources for free. A lot of people tend to focus too much on the stock market performances. Okay, they're worried about 10%, 7%, 12%. If you're like already a millionaire, sure, you want to worry about how the market's performing. But when you're just starting to invest, what you should really focus on is your savings rate. Okay. So, and this is based on your gross income and not your take home income. The most accurate way to calculate your savings rate is using your gross income, because every one of you has different tax rates and deductions. And let's say you're single and make $30 an hour. For 40 hours a week, that's $62,000 a year in annual gross income. That's not counting any overtime or anything like that. The first one I always prioritize is my employer match. Okay. Then I put 5% right here in this block. Okay. You can choose 5%, 6%, whatever you want. And if I'm doing the bare minimum 401k contribution, let's say at 5%, then that's where I put it. So I'm basically contributing $120 every paycheck to my 401k, while my employer contributes another $120. This will give you a 10% savings rate automatically, right? If you max out your HSA or health savings account with $3,850 as a single individual in 2023, then that's $148 every 2 weeks. Your savings rate would be at 6% annually just with an HSA. And if you max out your Roth IRA with $6,500 in 2023, then that's $250 every 2 weeks. And your savings rate would be 10%. So this would be a total of 27% savings rate if you can manage to do it. Keep in mind that it's really actually 22% that comes out of your gross income, because 5% of that is actually from your employer. Okay. I'm going to give you another scenario, because a lot of you watch my channel make over $100,000 a year, and that's awesome. Okay. And let's say you are single and make $50 an hour, and that's about $104,000 a year in gross income. I would still prioritize the 401k employer match and then prioritize HSA and Roth IRA. You should be able to max out your HSA and Roth IRA with a six-figure income. If you can max out your 401k contribution at 22,500, then I would say go for it. But since you're already saving 37% of your gross income towards your retirement, I would caution you not to have too much in your retirement if you're cash poor. If you have enough cash set aside, then I would say go for it. But I wouldn't max out the 401k until at least I have my emergency fund fully funded. Okay. And let's say, I'm going to give you another scenario. Let's say you're married and both of you and your spouse work and make the same amount of money. Okay. Now you can double your investments between you and your working spouse. Take advantage of this if you're both working, and because now you can put twice the 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA. I'm just going to assume that both spouses work for in the private sector for a 401k company. If both of you make let's say a total of $208,000 in gross income, you can each contribute up to $22,500 in the 401k. So with a total of $45,000, okay? Your HSA can even go up to $7,750, and your Roth IRA can be a total of $13,000. That is a total of 32% savings rate just in retirement and contributing $76,000 a year. And if you add $500, let me see, let me add $500 to the travel fund. That's another 6%, okay? And if you add another $200 every 2 weeks, that's going to be 3%. And let's add another $500 in the annual expenses fund. That's 6%. And let's say you have more money and you want to invest $1,000 every 2 weeks to your taxable investment account. That's another 13%, right? So you could save and invest up to 60% of your gross income, $200,000 in gross income. Could you live on $75,000? You probably can if you don't have any debt, right? My wife and I don't have any debt except for our mortgage. And because our mortgage payments are really low from buying a house, and I was really fortunate. I bought a house in 2014 and I managed to refinance it in 2020 down to like 2.9%. We now save and invest up to 70% of our gross income. It is impossible though. Let's take out that mortgage out of the equation, okay? It is impossible to save 50%, 60%, or 70% if we had car loans, credit cards, personal loans, or something else. This is a really good tool for you to see how much you're really saving every month. And again, you can download it for free by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. Okay. And I want to show you one more thing here. This net worth calculator, I've been using this since 2014 or 2015. It is very important to diversify your net worth because you don't want to have too much in real estate, too much in your 401k, or just too much in anything, right? So what is the right balance? And calculating your net worth is simple. It's your total assets minus your liabilities. So if you have $100,000 in assets and $20,000 in debt, like your home student loans, your home student loans, credit cards, or any other outstanding loans, then your net worth is $80,000. When your net worth reaches $1 million, you're a millionaire. When your net worth reaches $2 million, you're a multimillionaire. And here's an example. Let's say this guy, a random guy, okay? Random guy named Sai is 30 years old and his net worth is $155,000, which exceeds the average net worth for Americans between the ages of 30 and 34. That's great, right? However, his house is worth $400,000 and he owes $300,000. His retirement account balance is $50,000. Let's say 401k is $50,000. And he only has $5,000 in his checking account. So the majority of this person's net worth is tied up in the home equity at $100,000. $50,000 is in retirement account, but he can't access it until he hits the retirement age. All he has left is $5,000 in liquidity, which probably doesn't cover more than 2 months of expenses, right? And you see how this person is poorly diversified because the real estate piece dominates the net worth. His primary home alone is 67% of his net worth, and his retirement account is about 30% of his net worth. So if you ask him what his net worth is, and he tells you $155,000, then that sounds pretty good on the surface, right? But in reality, his net worth is too much tied up in the equity of his primary home. So if something emergency happens, or if he wants to purchase more assets, $5,000 in his checking account is all he has access to for liquidity. This is the common problem many Americans have for not diversifying their net worth. You have to build your wealth outside your primary residence, because if he takes out his primary residence and retirement assets from his net worth, again, he would only have $5,000 for an immediate access, right? What you really want is to have a well-balanced net worth where you're not cash poor, retirement poor, or too heavy with home equity, right? Everyone's goal right now is to have $1 million in net worth. Ideally, I want to have no more than 25% of my net worth in the equity of my primary residence. So let's just say that my house is worth $400,000 on the market, and I owe $300,000 on a mortgage, which means I have $100,000 in equity of my home, right? I also want to have at least 10% of my net worth in cash. So if I had $1 million in net worth, I would like to have at least $100,000 in cash. But of that $100,000 in cash, $30,000 of that could be in my emergency fund, $20,000 in travel fund or discretionary fund and annual expenses funds. And the rest of it can be used for future real estate or other asset purchases. If we have another stock market crash like in 2020 or a bear market in 2022, I had cash on the sideline ready to purchase those stocks. If I didn't have any cash, I wouldn't be able to make those purchases, right? And looking back at 2020, am I glad that I made those purchases? Absolutely. But looking back in 2022, am I glad that I bought some of those tech stocks? Absolutely, right? And I know $100,000 in cash seems a lot, and you have the potential to lose that to inflation. That's why I would put most of that in long-term CDs yielding about 5% in APY or high-yield savings accounts. When it comes to cash allocation, I pay more attention to the percentage instead of the asset value. And ideally, I like to have at least half of that in my net worth in retirement and stock market investments. If I have 50% of my net worth in 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA, I'm pretty comfortable with that because it's well balanced, right? If I had another $250,000 in the stock market investments, that would be 25% of my net worth in my early retirement investments. And in September, I'm going to do a video on my net worth update, and I do this every birthday of mine, and where I am, and tell you guys where I am with my financial independence journey. As my assets increase, I like to continue to maintain that 25 to 30% of my net worth in real estate, 40 to 45% of my net worth in retirement accounts, 20 to 25% in my early retirement stock market investments, and 10 to 15% of my net worth in cash. Not keeping enough cash in your assets is actually dangerous because if something happens to you, you're going to end up borrowing from your retirement accounts, investment assets, or borrow from the bank. There's no reason for anyone to borrow from a bank like a HELOC or something to purchase more assets. And your net worth is not going to increase if you keep adding debt or liabilities. Be patient, save money, and invest your money. And if you're not sure what you're doing, schedule a complimentary coaching session and by visiting firesetchat.com/coaching, or schedule a paid coaching session by visiting firesetchat.com/pricing. And this has been another beast of a video, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And I will see you in the next public live stream.